I should have known better. After 2 failed marriages, I swore I wouldn't be fooled again. I told myself I was smarter now, more careful. But then Emma came into my life, young, beautiful, full of admiration for me. She had this way of looking at me like I was the most important man in the world, like she saw something in me no one else ever had. It was intoxicating. Addictive. We had been married for just over a year, and I thought I was happy. I thought I had won. Blackwood Steakhouse was my empire, the restaurant I had built from nothing with my younger business partner, Ryan. He was almost 20 years my junior, a sharp, ambitious guy I had taken under my wing. I trusted him like a brother. We had spent years growing the business together, turning it into one of the most popular restaurants in the city. Emma loved the place. She was always there, drinking wine at the bar, smiling at the staff, chatting with the regulars like she owned the damn place. I found it charming at first. It made me proud, my wife enjoying the world I had built. Then she started spending more time with Ryan than with me. At first, I told myself it was normal. She was just being social. Ryan was like family. But then came the late dinners, the whispered conversations, the shared laughter that didn't include me. I noticed the way Ryan leaned in when she spoke, how his hand would brush against hers just a little too long. And Emma? She didn't even try to hide it. A lingering touch on his wrist. The way she tossed her hair back when he spoke. The glances, the soft smiles, the inside jokes I was no longer a part of. Then my body started to fail me. The exhaustion hit first. I was always tired, no matter how much sleep I got. My hands started shaking. My vision blurred at the worst times. The nausea came in waves, relentless and unexplainable. I told myself it was stress. Running a business is hard. Having a young wife is harder. But something didn't feel right. I started forgetting things. Losing my train of thought in the middle of conversations. Dropping things. My hands just wouldn't work the way they used to. I chalked it up to getting older, but the changes were happening too fast. Too suddenly. I went to the doctor. They ran tests. The results were inconclusive. They suggested anxiety, maybe an early sign of a neurological disorder. Maybe stress. Always stress. Emma was so supportive. So sweet. She held my hand during appointments, kissed my forehead, made sure I took my medication. She started making me special teas at night, insisted I drink more water, eat healthier. She was taking care of me. Or so I thought. Then one night, I came home earlier than expected. I was supposed to be at a late meeting with a vendor, but it had been cancelled. I was exhausted, more than usual, but something inside me told me not to call ahead. Just go home. Walk in. See what happens. I opened the door to my house, and immediately, I knew something was wrong. The air smelled like expensive wine. A faint trace of Emma's perfume. And something else. Something foreign. Laughter. Not just hers, his. I stepped into the living room, and there they were. Ryan was lounging on my couch, a glass of my best wine in his hand. He was relaxed, comfortable, like he belonged there. Emma sat beside him, legs tucked under her, her fingers tracing light circles on his wrist. She barely reacted when she saw me. She just smiled. Smiled. Oh, you're home early. Like nothing was wrong. Like I was the one intruding. Ryan didn't even bother to move. He looked at me, smirked, and swirled his wine glass, taking a slow sip, as if savoring it. Emma shifted slightly but didn't pull away from him. Her body language was too familiar. Something snapped inside me. I looked at them, really looked. And suddenly, everything made sense. The long nights at the restaurant when I wasn't around. The way my body had been failing me. The way they had been waiting. I wasn't just dealing with an affair. I was dealing with a countdown. They were waiting for me to die. I barely slept that night. Emma lay beside me, her breathing steady, her body warm under the sheets. If I reached out, I could touch her, feel her skin, trace the same curves that Ryan had probably touched. The thought made my stomach turn. I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. The weight of what I had seen, of what I knew, settled over me like a crushing force. This wasn't just an affair. It wasn't just betrayal. They were waiting for me to die. And I had almost let them win. The nausea, the exhaustion, the blurred vision, it wasn't stress. It wasn't bad luck. It was poison. Emma had been so careful. So loving. Always making my drinks, urging me to stay hydrated. The special herbal tea she brewed every night, the vitamins she reminded me to take, she was poisoning me, slowly, methodically. And Ryan? He wasn't just some boy toy playing with another man's wife. He was her partner in this. They were planning something together. The affair, the poison, the life insurance policy she had been so insistent about, it was all part of the same plan. I turned my head slightly, watching Emma's peaceful face in the dim glow of the bedroom. The woman I had loved. The woman I had promised to protect. I clenched my jaw. She had to think I was still blind. So I closed my eyes, slowed my breathing, and pretended to sleep. The next morning, I acted normal. I kissed Emma on the forehead before I left for work. I shook Ryan's hand when I saw him at the restaurant. I played my part. But inside, I was watching. Calculating. Planning. The first thing I did was get a full blood test at a private clinic. The results came in 2 days later. Low levels of thallium. A slow-acting poison, difficult to detect, fatal in high enough doses. Emma had been killing me by inches. The second thing I did was check our financial accounts. It didn't take long to find the missing money. Thousands of dollars had been siphoned off, money I hadn't spent. Emma had access to the accounts, and so did Ryan, as my business partner. But that wasn't the worst part. Buried in the transactions, I found the life insurance policy. A brand new one. Recently taken out. For $2 million. Payable to Emma. I felt sick. I leaned back in my office chair, gripping the arms so tightly my knuckles turned white. I had built this empire. I had built this life. And they were stealing it, piece by piece. And once they had it all, once I was gone, they'd walk away with everything. That night, I came home late. Emma was already in bed, reading one of her paperback novels. When she looked up at me, she smiled, a sweet, affectionate smile that had fooled me for over a year. "Tough day?" she asked. I forced a sigh, rubbing my temples. "Yeah. Just exhausted." "You've been exhausted a lot lately," she said, tilting her head, studying me. She was watching me. Measuring me. Checking how much longer it would take. I gave her a weak smile. "I guess I just need to rest more." Her eyes lit up. "That's what I keep saying, baby. You push yourself too hard." She got up and walked to the kitchen, her silk robe swaying around her legs. "I'll make you some tea. That'll help you relax." My stomach churned. I followed her, standing in the doorway as she prepared it. Watching her every move. The way her hands moved smoothly, like she had done this 1,000 times. She reached into the cupboard, pulling out the tea tin. She didn't see me watching when she took a pinch of something from a small bottle and stirred it into my cup. She turned, holding it out to me with that same soft smile. "Here you go, baby." I took the cup. Held it. And smiled back. I didn't drink it. When she wasn't looking, I dumped it. Flushed it down the sink. That night, I lay in bed next to her, heart pounding. She had actually done it. She had drugged my tea, right in front of me, confident I wouldn't notice. And what if I had drank it? Would I have woken up tomorrow? I turned my head, looking at her again. This woman, my wife, was waiting for me to die. No. She was expecting me to die. And Ryan? He was expecting to inherit my half of the business. With my accounts drained and my health failing, it would be easy for him to argue that I was no longer fit to run Blackwood Steakhouse. The board would side with him. He would take everything I had built. I had mentored him. Trusted him. And now, he was trying to replace me. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. The rage, the betrayal, it was burning through my veins, stronger than any poison. But I kept breathing. I kept my face calm. I let them think they were winning. Because now, I had a plan. Emma thought she could walk away with half of everything. She thought she'd cry in court, paint me as a neglectful husband, bat her eyelashes at the judge, and walk out a rich woman. She was wrong. I sat in the courtroom, calm, composed, watching as she tried to sell her story. He was always working, she said, her voice trembling, her eyes glassy with fake tears. I was alone. I felt abandoned. I didn't mean for things to happen the way they did. She clutched a tissue in her perfectly manicured hands, her voice breaking at just the right moments. It was a performance, and a bad one at that. Ryan wasn't there to back her up. He was sitting in a jail cell, awaiting trial. The evidence against him, his past, his financial fraud, his role in my poisoning, was airtight. There would be no smooth-talking his way out of this one. So Emma was alone. And now, it was my turn. I handed my lawyer the folder. Thick. Heavy. Filled with everything. Bank statements. Secret accounts. Copies of the life insurance policy she had taken out on me. Medical reports proving the poison in my system. Security footage of her and Ryan together, sitting at my restaurant, plotting behind my back. It took 5 minutes. That's all it took for the judge to flip through the evidence, his expression growing darker with each passing page. When he finally looked up, his eyes were sharp, cold. Mrs. Holt, he said, not only will you receive none of your husband's assets, but I'm recommending a full investigation into your financial activities. Emma's face drained of color. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just watched. She opened her mouth, desperate to say something, anything, but no words came out. She had lost. Ryan was in jail. She had no money, no home, no future. And just when she thought it couldn't get worse, I made sure her name would never be forgotten. The day after the trial, I made the announcement. Blackwood Steakhouse was no more. I was rebranding. Not just a new name, a whole new concept. I called it Emma's Betrayal. A restaurant inspired by cheating wives and the men they destroy. The moment the press release went out, the internet exploded. Social media was on fire. People couldn't believe it. A restaurant dedicated to one man's ultimate revenge. The story was too good to ignore. Everyone wanted to see it for themselves. Opening night, the line wrapped around the block. People weren't just coming for the food. They were coming for the spectacle. Every table had a menu full of inside jokes at Emma's expense. The Backstabber Special, a thick-cut steak, served with a literal knife in the middle. The Cheater's Delight, a dessert so rich it made you sick. The Side Piece Sampler, a dish meant to be shared, but never equally. The Gold Digger's Feast, a lavish, overpriced meal that comes with an empty wallet. The story spread like wildfire. Every food blogger, influencer, and journalist wanted to cover it. The restaurant was more popular than ever. I knew it was only a matter of time before Emma snapped. The restaurant had become a sensation. Every night, the place was packed, people lining up just to witness the spectacle. Articles flooded the internet about the pettiest, most brilliant revenge ever taken. Influencers filmed their meals, holding up knives from the backstabber special, laughing as they tasted the cheater's delight. And Emma? She couldn't escape it. Her name was everywhere. Not as a successful woman. Not as a wife. Not as anything but a joke. A punchline. I knew she was spiraling. I had heard things. People whispered about her getting kicked out of her apartment. About failed job interviews where employers smirked the moment they saw her name. About dates that ended the second a man realized she was that Emma. And then, one night, she finally cracked. It was a Friday. The restaurant was packed. The wait list stretched for hours. The air buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, the smell of steak sizzling on the grill. And then, suddenly, it all stopped. Because she walked in. Emma. Disheveled. Hair wild, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. Her coat was buttoned wrong, like she had rushed out in a frenzy. She looked around the room, her breathing ragged, her chest rising and falling like she had been running. Then her eyes locked on me. And she screamed. You think this is funny? Every conversation in the restaurant died. Every fork froze halfway to a mouth. All eyes turned toward her. Emma's hands clenched at her sides, shaking. Her breath was ragged, uneven. She looked unhinged. You ruined my life, James. You humiliated me. You turned me into a joke. And for what? Because I didn't love you. Because I wanted something more than being your pretty little housewife. I didn't move. Didn't flinch. She stormed forward, heels clicking hard against the floor. A waiter hesitated, stepping in her path, but she shoved past him. Straight toward me. You don't get to do this to me. You don't get to destroy my name. I swear to God, I will sue you, I will ruin you. I tilted my head, watching her unravel. Behind her, people held up their phones, recording. The glow of screens reflected off the polished tables. This moment was already online. I let her scream. I let her rant. I let her throw her tantrum in front of a restaurant full of customers who knew exactly who she was. Then, when she finally stopped for breath, I spoke. Calm. Cold. Unshaken. Emma, I said. You wanted to be famous. I let the words settle. Let them sink in. Then I smiled. Now you are. She broke. Right there, in the middle of the restaurant. Her face crumpled. Her body sagged, as if the weight of everything finally crushed her. Her hands trembled, her lips parted, but no sound came out. And then, humiliation burning in her eyes, she ran. Pushed through the doors, disappearing into the cold night air. By morning, the video was viral. Emma Holt, former wife of Blackwood Steakhouse's owner, having a public breakdown inside Emma's betrayal. Millions watched it. Thousands commented. I didn't see her again after that. The restaurant was thriving. More than ever before. People weren't just coming for the food anymore. They were coming for the story. They wanted to be a part of it, to eat at the place where a man turned his wife's betrayal into a legend. They ordered the backstabber special with laughter in their voices, took pictures next to the neon Emma's betrayal sign, tagged their posts with captions like, "Karma tastes amazing." Every night, I sat in my office, looking down at the packed dining room below. The clinking of glasses, the murmur of conversations, the sizzling from the open kitchen, it was all mine. I had won. But as I sat there, staring down at everything I had built, I felt something I hadn't expected. Emptiness. I had taken everything from her. Her money. Her reputation. Her dignity. She had wanted to erase me, to walk away with my fortune and my name, and instead, I had erased her. She no longer existed as a person. She was just a ghost in a story people told over dinner. I should have felt satisfied. But I didn't. I heard things, now and then. Emma had left the city. No one knew where she had gone, and no one really cared. The last anyone had seen of her was that night in my restaurant, when she had broken apart in front of 100 eyes and 1,000 cameras. Some said she moved to another state, tried to start over. Others claimed she was working as a bartender in some hole-in-the-wall dive, where no one knew her name. Ryan was still in prison. That was the only part that felt like true justice. He would never get his hands on my restaurant. Never get the life he had tried to steal from me. That, at least, felt right. One night, after closing, I stood alone in the restaurant. The last staff had already left. The tables were clean, the chairs stacked. Only the dim glow of the bar lights remained, casting long shadows across the floor. I walked slowly toward the Emma's betrayal sign on the wall. Ran my fingers over the letters. It had been my greatest victory. My masterpiece. The perfect revenge. And yet, standing there in the silence, I found myself asking a question I never thought I would. Was it enough? Had I really won? Or had I just let my rage consume me? I had taken everything from her. But was that justice? Or just revenge? I stood there for a long time. Thinking. Wondering. Then, finally, I turned off the lights, locked the doors, and walked into the night.